Okay, in the last video we saw if condition, and we actually had an example in which we wanted to know, we wanted to just print the greater number. So we input a number A, we input a number B, and if B is greater than A, we printed B is greater than A. Then we applied another if condition to check if A is greater than B, then print A. The else clause or the else part of if is as the name suggests, if this condition is true, if this condition is true, this particular condition is true, then go there. If this is not true, which means else, if this is true, then go there, else go there. So if this is true, then you land here. If this is false, then you land in else part for sure. And this else is, if B is greater than A, if that condition is true, then you print this thing. Otherwise, A might be greater than B or A might be equal to B. Either way, you land in else part. So this if and else, they both have this alignment, but then the block of else started from this particular alignment. Maybe you have more statements here. The alignment of this if block started from here, and you may have more statements here. So let's go to Jupyter Notebook and see the else running. So let's say A equals int input, and B is B is int input, and we say okay, if A is greater than B, then print A, else print B, else print B. Now B will be printed even if it is equal to A or if it is greater than A. Either way, B will be printed. So let's just see, let's just run this and see what happens. So shift enter, so input a number. So A is, let's say 10 and B is, let's say 12. So what do you think? When I will press enter, what will be printed? B or A? B, yeah, B is printed. That's what B is printed. Now if I run this again and A is 10 and B is 10, still the 10 will be printed. So let's modify. Let's just say dot print if part. So that means we landed in if part. Otherwise, we landed in else part. So just to be more elaborative, let's say so 10 and 10, and we landed in else part. And the reason is if A is greater than B, so 10 is greater than B, 10 is greater than 10, false. So you go to else, and the else block, the whole block just executed. So that's what else is. It's really very nice to have an else there. If this is false, whatever that condition is, if that is false, then you land in else. So yeah, that's else part simply. Now okay, so we have this if else structure. We can have one more power with this if. What if we want if B is greater than A, then you print B, else if A is equal to B, then you print they are equal, And if this is false and this condition is false, if both these conditions are false, then you go to else part. So basically if, else if, else if, else if, else. So you can have really deep structure. For example, in this particular example, if B is larger than A, then you land in this part. Else if, this if is just short form of else. Else means B is not greater than A. Else, you can have another check. Else if A is equal to B, then do what? If we can have one more check, we can have one more check, we can have several checks, and then else. Else will only execute if all the if conditions or else if parts on top, their conditions, they are false, and only then else will be execute. So let's see this else if running on Jupyter Notebook. Okay, so let's say A is int. So rather than taking inputs, let's say A is 1, B is, let's say, 5. Let's say we have taken these inputs, A is 1, B is 5. If A is equal to B, then do what? Print equal if, which means else if. Now because this is if, you have to write a condition here which will be either true or false. If A is larger than B, then do what? Then print, let's say, A, and else, let's say, you print B. Okay, so that's it. And this statement, print, is not in if condition, not in if. This is outside, complete. This is complete if condition with all its else and else if parts, and this is no longer inside. So let's run this. What do you think? What will be the result? If A is 1, B is 5, then else part is going to be run, because A is not equal to B. A is equal to B, that's false. A is larger than B, that is also false. So you will land in else part, and B will be printed, and then a statement will be printed which is not in if. So yeah, so B is printed and not in if. If B is 10, then what will happen? A equals to B, that is false, so you will not land here. Else if A is larger than B, true, you will land here. Because you land here, else will not execute. So A will be printed and then not in if. If A is 10 and B is also 10, let's say, then you have equal. Yeah, so that's else if. Okay, so that's about if, else if, or short form is LF, else structure. In the next video, we will be talking more about this if, else structure in a bit more detail, and we will also be giving you a short form of this kind of else if, else if structure. So hope to see you in the next video. Okay, one way of writing this if, else kind of structure, there is a short form as well, which is written down here in this green color, for example. This is kind of a same code that we saw in the last video, but that's the short form. Let's say A equals 9 and B equals 10, then print A if A is larger than B. Else print this particular thing if A is equal to B, else print that. This is exactly the same kind of structure. For example, print A if A is larger than B. So you just read that if A is larger than B, then print A. Else if A is equal to B, then print equal. Else print that. So that is kind of a short form of writing this if, else kind of structure. But I will recommend to use, the structure in this particular horizontal form rather than writing that in this particular way, because this kind of structure, that horizontal kind of structure, is much more readable, much more manageable, and this structure might be confusing sometime for some kind of readers. Or and also, if this structure goes on and on and on, which we'll see in an example today, writing very deep and lengthy structures in short form is not very feasible. So but this feature is there if you like to write if else kind of structure in this way. This is available in Python. Okay, let's get a good grip on this if else structure on Jupyter Notebook. Let's move on to Jupyter Notebook to see an example, just an example. So let's say the example is user will input a number. Let's say int input, let's say, and enter marks. Let's say enter marks for a particular subject. Let's say user will enter some marks, and our goal is if the marks are larger than 85, then we will print A grade. If the marks are larger than 80 but smaller, so if the marks are larger or equal to 85, then we will print A grade. Else, if marks are larger or equal to 80 but smaller than 85, then we will print A minus grade. And if marks are larger or equal to 75 but smaller than 80, we will print for example B grade, and so on. Let's print this whole nested structure. That let's make this if kind of structure a little lengthy. Let's get comfortable with it. So if A is larger than or equal to 85, to enhance readability, it is good to include a space after the variable and space, but don't actually write the space inside that, because larger and equal to, they combine without space is an operator. So if A is larger than 85, then print, let's say, A grade. L if A is larger or equal to 80 and A is smaller than 85. So let me write this in a more readable form. Else, if A is smaller than 85 and A is larger or equal to 80, then we should do what? It is sometimes good to include these kind of parentheses. Sometimes it is good just to make these things more readable, that this is one block, this is one boolean, this is one boolean, this is one decision, this is one decision. Although not writing the parentheses is also okay, but writing the parentheses make code a little more readable. So for example, if A is smaller than 85 and A is larger than 80, if that is true, so remember, and is true only when the left side is true and right side both are true, then this whole condition becomes true. And I promised you that I will show you the power of comparisons and actually combining the Boolean variables using ands and ors and stuff like so. So here you're seeing the one. In that case, let's say print, let's say A minus grade, and elif if A is smaller than, if A is smaller than 80 and A is bigger or equal to 75. If that's the case, then what should we do? Let me omit the parentheses just to show that whether writing parentheses or not writing parentheses is perfectly okay. I just recommend to write parentheses so the code becomes much more readable than otherwise. Okay, then we have print, let's say B grade, and let's say one more LF. If A is smaller than 75 and A is larger or equal to, let's say 70, then print B minus grade, let's say, and let's just finish this. Let's else print below average, for example. Let's say that's our code. So we will enter numbers. If the number is greater than 85, then A grade. When this condition becomes true, then this print will execute and we will out of the structure right there. If this condition is false, then this condition will be checked. If this condition becomes true, then this print will execute and we will be out of the structure. If this is false and this is false, then this will be checked. If this is true, then we print B grade and we are out. But if this is false, then this will be checked. And if this is true, then we'll print B minus grade and we will be out. If this is also false, then we will dive into else part and we will say, okay, below average. So let's see, for example, let's say the marks are 82. So A minus grade, that makes sense, A minus grade, because the marks are smaller than 85 and larger or equal to 80, so A minus grade. Yeah, let's run this again, and we have, let's say, marks, let's say 64, below average. Okay, great. So you see this if, elif, else, this can go as long as you want depending upon your logic. So great, and further you can combine several comparisons, several booleans together with ands and ors and nots, whatever you like to do. Let me give you one more beautiful thing. Let's create an else without writing an else. Let's just write elif and implement else, completely else. So we are not going to write else explicitly, but we are going to write a program that actually simulates else. So let's see, if A equals, let's say 3, if A is larger than 10, then print, let's say, larger than 10. Now we are not going to write else, but we are going to achieve the else part. If not A is greater than 10, you see, then print else part. You see that? I mean, that's beautiful. If this condition is true, then go there. If this condition is false, then not of false is true. Then you land here. And you need not to write an else part if you want. Just I have implemented else part using elif. So you see that? So else part. So we are in else part. If A is, let's say, 13, then we will print, okay, greater than 10. Well, just for fun. Okay. Okay, great. So we saw if condition, its shorthand, and else if structure in a bit more lengthy way. So in the next video we will see if condition inside or in the body of another if condition, which is called a nested if. So hope to see you in the next video.